Laurence Lee is in the opposition stronghold of Benghazi. Laurence, do opposition fighters feel now that they've gone as far as they can militarily and need to reassess their options?
I think both sides, to be honest with you, are thinking about what is going to constitute acceptability at the moment. Just think from Gaddafi's side to begin with. Only a couple of weeks ago, Gaddafi had his tanks in Benghazi before they were pushed back by all the airstrikes. Now, Gaddafi's people have had to change their own tactics because they know that if they use tanks, they're going to get bombed from the air. And so we've been told that instead of that, they're now using pickups with mortars and the like mounted on them. Now, that may be effective against the rebels, but it's certainly, in its own terms, bound to limit their potential advance. Equally, the rebels, as poorly trained and equipped as they are compared to Gaddafi's forces, have managed, at least to an extent at the moment, to hold their own. But we're told that they too are changing their tactics, and as of today, Friday, they have, in Ajdabiya, for example, said they're only going to allow experienced fighters in, and everybody else who wants to join in because they're full of this sort of revolutionary zeal aren't going to be allowed in because they're too much of a liability. And so both sides at the moment, it appears, are thinking about different options.
Laurence, the rebels may not be losing at this stage, but how will this offer of a ceasefire affect the morale of the troops if it is rejected by Gaddafi? They've been battling his forces now for 2 weeks, despite massive military support from NATO members.
I think, in all honesty, it may not change very much in its own terms at all. You have to remember the proposal, it isn't the first time either it's been made, but it was made for a start in front of the Special Representative from the United Nations, which has called repeatedly for a ceasefire. But even in its own terms, it has very specific conditions attached to it, which are that Gaddafi moves his forces out of the town and ends the sieges as well. And, by the way, said the man from the Transitional Council here, if there is no ceasefire, we, the rebels, will push on and liberate all the western towns. So, you know, this isn't a kind of, let's have a ceasefire because we don't think we can win. It's with very specific conditions attached to it, and it has a level of threat that goes with it as well. Now, clearly, the rebels know perfectly well that in terms of his own levels of bravado, Gaddafi may call for a ceasefire, but he's done that twice before, and it's meant absolutely nothing. So, in general terms, you have this promise of more violence, but underneath it, it does look increasingly as though, with both the sides now stuck somewhere near Brega, neither side able to win. If a political solution isn't necessarily inevitable, it's certainly becoming much more likely than I think it probably was a week ago.